Fire may leave ashes behind, but some of the world's most haunting secrets lie entombed beneath layers of snow and ice, waiting centuries to reveal their chilling truths. In the remote heights of the Indian Himalayas, nestled in a secluded glacial basin, lies a discovery that has stunned the scientific community. A mass of ancient human remains scattered across the icy shores of a mysterious lake. No battle scars, no ceremonial burials, and no clear reasons. Just bones preserved by frost and time. This is the haunting riddle of Rupkund Lake, where myth, history, and unexplained death converge. Perched at a staggering altitude of nearly 16,000 feet, Rupkund Lake, known locally as Skeleton Lake, is a small glacial body of water located in the state of Uttarakhand, India. For most of the year, it is cloaked in ice and surrounded by towering Himalayan peaks. The environment is barren and forbidding, a realm of silence broken only by the wind. For generations, local shepherds and travelers have passed down strange tales of human bones strewn around the lake's edge and even visible beneath its crystalline surface. These eerie remains were whispered to be the remnants of a forgotten tragedy, but no one knew whose lives were lost or why they had perished in such a desolate place. It wasn't until the early 1940s that the world beyond the Himalayas came to learn of the lake's dark secret. A British forest officer named Hari Kishan Madwell stumbled upon the site while on patrol and alerted authorities. What he uncovered was both astonishing and macabre. Hundreds of skeletal remains lying out in the open, eerily preserved by the freezing climate. Many of the skeletons still wore remnants of clothing, while some clutched wooden walking staffs or bore adornments such as bangles and rings. The remains showed no evidence of disturbance by animals. Whatever had happened here had frozen the moment in time, untouched and undisturbed for centuries. Early speculation ranged widely. Some historians proposed that the dead were soldiers from a long-forgotten military campaign, perhaps an invading force lost in the mountains. Others imagined a caravan of pilgrims or traders who had succumbed to the elements. Another theory suggested that the lake served as an ancient burial site. Yet none of these theories fully accounted for the scattered arrangement of the bones, the absence of weapons, or the lack of structured burial practices. The scene lacked the order one would expect from either a battle or a ceremonial interment. Something far more unusual had occurred. In the early 21st century, advances in forensic science allowed researchers to extract DNA from the skeletons. A 2019 study conducted by an international team of scientists, including geneticists from India, Germany, and the United States, revealed a startling truth. The remains did not all come from a single group or time period. Instead, genetic analysis showed at least three distinct ancestral groups. The first matched local South Asian populations. The second, even more astonishing, was genetically similar to people from the Eastern Mediterranean regions including present-day Greece and Crete. A third group showed affinities with Southeast Asians. Radiocarbon dating added another twist. The South Asian remains dated back to approximately 800 CE, while the Mediterranean group appeared to have died over 1,000 years later, around the 1800s. This wasn't a single tragic event, it was multiple waves of death, centuries apart. Among the most curious forensic details were the fractures found on many skulls. These injuries weren't caused by blades, animal attacks, or falling rocks. They were concentrated at the top of the head and showed signs of blunt force trauma delivered by an object falling from above. The conclusion, though almost unbelievable, was scientifically compelling. The individuals had been killed by a freak hailstorm. But not an ordinary one. This storm had unleashed massive hailstones, each possibly the size of a cricket ball or larger, with enough force to kill instantly. Incredibly, local folklore had preserved a version of this deadly event. Villagers spoke of an ancient king and his entourage who undertook a pilgrimage through the mountains. According to the legend, they angered the mountain goddess Nanda Devi with their arrogance. In divine retribution, She rained down iron balls from the sky that struck the travelers dead. For generations, the story had been dismissed as a moral fable. But modern science now pointed to a meteorological catastrophe that closely matched this tale, a rare but natural event capable of explaining the skull injuries and the absence of other trauma. The lake's geography supports the theory. Rupkund lies in a shallow depression surrounded by ridges, an ideal trap for a sudden and violent storm. A severe hail event in such a confined basin could easily have killed many in an instant, leaving their remains to be enveloped by the ice. But if a deadly hailstorm explained one group of victims, how do we account for the others, especially those from different regions and centuries? Was Rupkund a site of recurring disaster, or was its location part of a broader, forgotten cultural or religious route through the Himalayas? Some historians now speculate that Rupkund may have been a ritual destination linked to ancient pilgrimage practices, such as the Nanda Devi Raj Jat Yatra, a ceremonial journey still undertaken today. Others believe the area may once have been a crossroads for distant traders or explorers. The presence of Mediterranean DNA, in particular, suggests that Rupkund may have connected cultural spheres far wider than previously imagined. Despite scientific breakthroughs, Rupkund remains a riddle cloaked in snow. For most of the year, the lake is frozen, its surface concealing the morbid secrets below. But in the warmer months, as the ice retreats, the skeletons reappear, staring up from the depths, a silent chorus from the past. The prevailing hailstorm hypothesis remains the most accepted explanation. Yet critical questions persist. Why did people from such diverse backgrounds die in the same place hundreds of years apart? Were these deaths all coincidental? Or is there a yet unrecognized historical pattern linking them? Could Rupkund mark the site of a lost cultural center, or was it simply the wrong place at the wrong time for too many travelers? Might the lake hold more artifacts or remains buried even deeper beneath the permafrost? Rupkund Lake stands as a solemn enigma, a frozen mass grave and a window into a forgotten past. While science has illuminated parts of its story, it has also revealed how much remains unanswered. The tale of Skeleton Lake is not just one of tragedy. It is a reminder of how the natural world, history, and mythology intertwine. And perhaps, beneath the ice and silence, the lake still holds the final clue, waiting to tell the rest of its story when the time is right. Just off the shores near the island of Lanka lies a curious and ancient formation that has captivated imaginations for centuries. A mysterious chain of limestone shoals extending roughly 30 miles across the sea. It resembles a natural land connection, but this isn't just any geological feature. In Hindu tradition, it's revered as Ram Setu, also referred to as Adam's Bridge, believed by many to be the physical remains of a sacred path constructed by divine intervention. While some insist it's a product of geological activity, shaped over millennia by ocean currents and sediment, others argue that it may be a relic of ancient engineering, a forgotten structure so old that its story blurs the boundary between mythology and historical memory. The existence of Ram Setu has been recorded for thousands of years, long before scientific methods were applied to understand its formation. It appears in religious texts and early maps alike. In the Hindu epic, the Ramayana, composed more than 2 millennia ago, this bridge is described as having been built by an army of Vanaras, divine monkey-like beings, under the leadership of Lord Rama, the exiled prince of Ayodhya. According to the legend, Rama sought to rescue his wife Sita, who had been abducted and taken to the island fortress of Lanka. To reach her, Rama directed his celestial warriors to build a crossing over the ocean, using enchanted stones that floated on water. With the bridge complete, Rama's forces crossed the sea, confronted the demon king Ravana, and succeeded in rescuing Sita. For hundreds of years, the story of Ram Setu was widely regarded as symbolic, a part of sacred storytelling, rather than an event rooted in history. But in the early 2000s, the narrative took an unexpected turn. Satellite images released by NASA revealed a remarkably linear chain of submerged formations connecting India and Sri Lanka, reigniting debate across disciplines and communities. Were these formations just a fluke of nature? Or had the Ramayana hinted at something that truly existed? According to geologists, the structure is most likely a naturally formed feature, an accumulation of sandbanks and limestone shoals molded by shifting tides and long-term coastal processes. Some geological studies suggest the formation could be between 7,000 to 18,000 years old, possibly dating to a time when sea levels were significantly lower and a land route between the two regions could have existed. However, skeptics of the natural formation theory point to the striking linearity of the formation and the unusual positioning of the stones as potential signs of artificial involvement. Historical documents add more intrigue. Some ancient sources hint that Ram Setu was once a fully walkable route. Travelers from earlier centuries, including famed explorer Marco Polo, referenced a land crossing between India and Sri Lanka. Even maps from as late as the 18th century depict what appears to be a solid land connection in the same location. Could this suggest that Ram Setu was once a functioning bridge, later degraded by the relentless forces of nature? And if that were the case, might ancient people have reinforced or modified the formation, leaving behind traces we have yet to fully understand? One of the most fascinating elements of the Ram Setu mystery lies in the makeup of the materials found there. Some studies note that large coral stones resting atop the sandbanks appear older than the sand below them, raising the possibility that they were deliberately placed, rather than formed in place by natural means. Adding to this mystery are the so-called floating stones found in the surrounding region. These lightweight, pumice-like rocks, due to their porous composition, are capable of remaining afloat. Supporters of the ancient construction theory see these stones as aligning closely with the descriptions in the Ramayana, where Rama's forces are said to have built the bridge using stones that floated by divine blessing. Although the mainstream scientific community maintains that Ram Setu is a natural feature, the idea that it may have been shaped or utilized by early civilizations hasn't been completely ruled out. Historical Indian records reference a possible land passage that once connected the subcontinent to the island to the south, perhaps used for migration or trade long before written history began. If prehistoric humans accessed this route, could they have gradually adapted and reinforced it to serve as a usable causeway? Or is it merely a geological formation that later inspired the creation of enduring myths? The mystery of Ram Setu has even entered the sphere of modern politics and religion. In the early 21st century, proposals were made to carve a shipping channel through the region to create a more direct maritime trade route. However, the project faced strong backlash. Many Hindus consider Ram Setu sacred, a tangible connection to their epic heritage. Legal battles reached the Supreme Court of India, with arguments on both sides. Some insisted the formation held religious and historical significance, while others emphasized development and economic benefit. Ultimately, the project was suspended, and for now, the structure remains untouched. Whether Ram Setu is a marvel of nature, an ancient human endeavor, or a blend of both, the mystery remains unsolved. If the formation is entirely natural, how did such a precise location become the setting for such specific, long-standing stories? Could these ancient texts have preserved a memory of something once real? And if it was the work of early civilizations, why has no trace of their tools, structures, or settlements been discovered? Some enigmas are locked beneath glaciers, others beneath waves, and some, like Ram Setu, rest just beneath the surface, guarding secrets from the earliest chapters of humanity. Its story reminds us that the line between legend and history is not always clear. The tale of Ram Setu challenges modern understanding, not just of geology or history, but of how ancient peoples perceived their world and recorded its wonders. And while many mysteries link us to ancient societies and their forgotten knowledge, Some seem to reach even further, questioning the very flow of history itself. In a remote region of China, deep within ancient limestone caverns, lies a discovery that redefines our understanding of human evolution. Unearthed within these chambers is an enigmatic population referred to as the Red Deer Cave People, remains that challenge established views of our ancestral diversity and the intricate web of humanity's origins. Back in the 1970s, in China's Yunnan province, archaeologists came upon a series of bones scattered across limestone cave systems. Among them were human fossils, intermingled with the remains of a red deer, an observation that would later give this group its name. The implication? These early people likely hunted and consumed large animals. As more details emerged, it became clear that this was no ordinary ancient group. The skeletal remains belonged to a population that defied easy classification. Their anatomy showed a puzzling fusion of primitive and more modern human traits, confounding the conventional framework of human development. What stood out most were their distinct physical traits. These individuals had robust, thick skulls with heavy brow ridges, wide faces, and low foreheads, features commonly associated with much older human ancestors. Surprisingly, their brain cavities were relatively small, more comparable to Homo erectus, a species thought to have vanished long before. Yet, in contrast, their limbs and overall body shape were slender and lightly built, more reminiscent of Homo sapiens. This odd mix of physical characteristics ignited heated scientific debate. Scholars have long debated, were these the final remnants of an archaic species that survived undisturbed in China's forests? Or did they represent a new, previously unidentified human lineage, possibly even a hybrid between early Homo sapiens and older species? The dating of the bones added more intrigue. They were estimated to be around 14,000 years old, a recent period, evolutionarily speaking. This would place them well beyond the extinction of Neanderthals and other ancient human groups, meaning they were living alongside modern humans. The caves themselves may have offered critical shelter, shielding this population from predators and harsh climates. These protective refuges could have enabled their prolonged survival. Archaeological evidence also shows traces of fire and tools, indicating that these people could hunt and likely harness fire, an essential tool for endurance in prehistoric life. They appear to have preyed on large animals like deer, and may have also gathered edible plants and nuts from the environment. However, unlike their Homo sapiens counterparts, they left behind no known artwork, ceramics, or complex tools, hinting at a very different level of cultural and technological advancement. One of the most compelling mysteries is their genetic background. Scientists initially hoped that DNA studies would unravel their identity, but the warm, moist conditions of southern China had damaged most of the genetic material, making successful extraction incredibly difficult. The first attempts at sequencing provided few answers. With no clear genetic data, experts turned to detailed anatomical comparisons. Some proposed that they were a surviving subgroup of Homo erectus. Others posited interbreeding with early modern humans, creating a hybrid population. A particularly bold hypothesis suggested they were a distinct human species, unrelated to either Neanderthals or Homo sapiens. If true, this would dramatically alter our timeline of human diversity, indicating that several types of humans coexisted much longer than previously thought. If this group truly was a separate species, then why did they disappear while Homo sapiens flourished? One explanation is competition. As modern humans entered Asia, they likely brought superior tools, hunting strategies, and social systems. Over time, the red deer cave people may have been pushed into smaller and smaller habitats, eventually leading to their extinction. Another possibility lies in environmental change. Around this time, Earth was transitioning out of the last ice age, causing ecosystems to shift. If this group had highly specialized survival techniques, Even slight environmental changes could have had devastating consequences. Yet some researchers propose an even more compelling idea. What if they didn't go extinct, but instead blended into the modern human gene pool? Certain genetic studies from Southeast Asian and Pacific Island populations have revealed markers that do not match any known Homo sapiens ancestry. Could these be the remaining genetic echoes of the Red Deer Cave people, assimilated rather than erased? Supporting this notion, local folklore in Yunnan and nearby areas tells of cave-dwelling people, described as short, strong, and unlike the villagers. While unverifiable, such legends mirror those found in other cultures. Tales of ancient peoples who vanished into obscurity, remembered only in whispers and myth. The Red Deer Cave discovery has fundamentally shifted how we view human prehistory. The long-standing belief that Homo sapiens simply outcompeted all other human types is now being questioned. Instead, evidence points to a more complex narrative involving survival, blending, and possibly coexistence. If this group represents a unique human branch, their endurance reveals an extraordinary story, one of resilience and adaptation far beyond what was once imagined. If they were hybrids, their existence demonstrates the incredible interconnectivity of ancient human populations. Today, many aspects of their story remain unresolved. New excavations and improved genetic techniques may eventually tell us who they truly were, where they came from, and what fate ultimately befell them. For now, the Red Deer Cave people remain a tantalizing mystery, a vivid reminder that human history is not a simple, straight line but a sprawling web of lost branches, hidden relations, and ancient enigmas. As science continues to investigate our shared origins, some secrets remain just out of reach, etched not only into fossils and stone, but also into the myths of forgotten peoples who once walked the same earth we now call home. Among the most persistent archaeological puzzles of all time lies a series of cryptic symbols that span millennia, markings belonging to one of the world's earliest urban societies. Scattered across the ancient settlements of the Indus Valley Civilization, spanning what is now modern-day Pakistan and India, these inscriptions appear etched into artifacts like pottery, tablets, and engraved seals. Referred to as the Indus glyphs, this symbolic script stands as one of the most baffling linguistic mysteries ever uncovered. Despite countless scholarly efforts, no one has successfully deciphered the meaning behind these characters. Was it a complete written language, a form of notation, or something entirely different? What insights have been locked away by time? The Indus Valley Civilization ranks among the major ancient cultures, thriving around the same period as Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Yet compared to these civilizations, our knowledge about the Indus people remains limited. Emerging around 3300 BCE and continuing until roughly 1300 BCE, this civilization stretched across a massive region, from present-day Afghanistan through Pakistan and into northwest India. Their urban hubs, such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, featured meticulous street layouts, advanced sanitation networks, and strikingly durable buildings. However, despite these achievements, they left behind no decipherable texts. What survives are thousands of compact inscriptions, delicately engraved on seals, ceramics, and other relics. These cryptic markings, consisting of abstract pictograms, linear forms, and complex iconographic groupings, suggest a form of symbolic exchange that scholars believe conveyed meaning, perhaps in a linguistic or administrative sense. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform, which eventually yielded their secrets to scholars, the script from the Indus Valley has yet to be decoded. The short length of each inscription poses a considerable barrier. Most examples feature only a handful of signs, typically ranging from 4 to 20, with no surviving examples of extended texts or narrative passages. One of the central obstacles in deciphering these markings is the absence of any bilingual artifact akin to the Rosetta Stone, a document that could translate the Indus symbols alongside a known language. Without such a linguistic bridge, even basic assumptions about the script's direction remain speculative. Was it read left to right, right to left, or in alternating sequences like boustrophedon, similar to some early Greek writing? Certain artifacts appear to reflect alternating directions, but this remains unconfirmed due to the absence of a known reference language. Academic opinions vary widely regarding the function of these glyphs. Some propose that the Indus system represents a comprehensive language with individual characters symbolizing phonetic units like syllables or entire words. If true, a complete grammar might still be recoverable. Others contend that the markings may not represent a language in the traditional sense, but were instead proto-writing, serving more for cataloging trade items or denoting ownership rather than conveying full sentences or abstract ideas. One of the major scholarly debates centers on which spoken language, if any, the script was based on. Some researchers propose a link to the Dravidian language family, spoken primarily in southern India today. Others suggest it may share ancestry with early Indo-European dialects or might originate from a linguistic lineage now entirely lost. In the absence of translations, all theories remain speculative. Although human analysis has hit many dead ends, the rise of artificial intelligence and algorithmic pattern recognition has opened new possibilities. Machine learning systems are being deployed to identify recurring patterns in the symbols and compare them to known writing systems in hopes of uncovering a grammatical structure or symbolic logic. Some researchers believe this digital approach may succeed where traditional methods have failed. The real treasure hidden within the Indus glyphs may not just be linguistic, it could be the missing key to understanding the culture itself. The Indus civilization boasted large, organized cities, international trade connections, and detailed craftsmanship in jewelry and art. But what of their government, religious practices, stories, or belief systems? Did they have monarchs, theocratic leaders, or councils? Unlike the written legacies of Mesopotamia and Egypt, which provided exhaustive records of mythology, law, and governance, the Indus world remains mostly voiceless, its secrets buried in stone. Adding to the intrigue is the unexplained collapse of the Indus society around 1900 BCE. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were abandoned for reasons still unclear. Some scholars suggest that climate shifts dried up vital rivers, leading to agricultural failure. Others point to seismic activity or possible invasions. But without written chronicles, definitive answers are elusive. Should the glyphs ever be decoded, they might reveal the true story of the Indus civilization's decline. A number of speculative theories propose that the people of the Indus Valley did not disappear but migrated elsewhere, influencing later cultures linguistically or culturally. If that's the case, then perhaps the script didn't vanish but evolved, its remnants hidden within modern languages, silently echoing through time. A perplexing question remains. If the Indus society was so advanced, with planned cities, commercial networks, and apparent literacy, why did it not leave behind more substantial textual records? Was the script used strictly for commerce or ritual markings? Or did a once thriving library of texts perish in floods, fires, or wars, erasing centuries of knowledge? To this day, the Indus Valley glyphs stand among the final great undeciphered scripts from antiquity. Where Mayan glyphs and Egyptian hieroglyphs were eventually interpreted through breakthroughs and perseverance, the Indus symbols persist in silence, resisting all translation. There is still hope that someday a breakthrough artifact might surface, a bilingual tablet or inscription pairing the Indus symbols with a recognizable language. Such a find could revolutionize our understanding of this long-lost civilization. Until then, we are left to study fragments, stone-carved clues from a society that once thrived, but now speaks only through shapes and lines. The Indus glyphs serve as a humbling reminder that, even in our modern age of satellites and supercomputers, there are elements of the human story that remain stubbornly out of reach, whispering through time, but never quite revealing their truth. Unusual relics aren't the only things that challenge our perception of ancient history. Sometimes the most perplexing riddles lie within the remains of those who walked the earth long ago. In the arid coastal plains of Peru, archaeologists uncovered remains that sparked deep confusion. Numerous human skulls not only stretched through known cranial deformation techniques, but also exhibiting characteristics unlike any documented human group. Certain skulls possessed brain cases much larger than typical human capacity, while others showed structural traits that went far beyond what artificial shaping could explain. These are known as the Paracas elongated skulls, among the most disputed and mystifying discoveries concerning early human ancestry. The Paracas culture thrived along Peru's southern coast between 800 BCE and 100 BCE. This society is renowned for its highly developed weaving techniques, complex burial customs, and distinctive subterranean tombs. Yet, their most peculiar and controversial legacy lies in the elongated skulls unearthed at the Paracas necropolis, a large burial ground first revealed by Peruvian archaeologist Julio Tello in 1928. Tello was astonished when he uncovered over 300 skulls, many of which bore extreme elongation and a shape unlike the crania of neighboring native groups. While head shaping is not unique to Paracas, numerous ancient civilizations practiced skull deformation by binding infants' heads to create an elongated profile. This phenomenon spans across continents including Africa, Asia, and even parts of Europe, and often held social, religious, or political symbolism. However, what made the Paracas skulls particularly distinctive was that several of them did not exhibit signs of artificial alteration at all. Typically, cranial shaping alters external form, but does not impact internal volume or skeletal structure. Yet the Paracas specimens showed brain cavities up to 25% larger than the norm. Their bone material was denser, some showing increased thickness, and in many cases, the sutures, the joints connecting skull plates, were irregular or even absent. Some skulls only had two principal plates instead of the standard three, a trait unseen in any recognized human group. These irregularities ignited fierce debates. Were these merely rare genetic deviations? Or might they belong to a different, now extinct lineage of humans? Some anthropologists speculated these skulls might represent a vanished human subspecies that once lived alongside early South American cultures before inexplicably disappearing. Others theorized the changes were caused by rare but extreme genetic mutations, although such mutations have not been widely recorded in other ancient populations. To probe deeper into the mystery, scientists turned to genetic testing. In 2014, initial DNA analysis was performed on a small selection of Paracas skulls. Though the results remain contentious and not fully confirmed by broader scientific scrutiny, they were nothing short of startling. The DNA sequences reportedly did not align with any Native American ancestry and failed to correspond to modern human genomes as one would expect. Instead, the genetic material appeared to include markers associated with European and Middle Eastern populations, a curious anomaly considering the Paracas lived millennia before any known transoceanic contact. This only deepened the mystery. If the Paracas people weren't related to other known South American civilizations, then who were they? Some researchers theorize that the Paracas might have been influenced or even founded by a lost seafaring group that migrated to South America from unknown lands. These voyagers could have arrived across oceans long before such journeys were thought possible. Others argued that DNA findings might have been skewed by contamination or faulty methodologies, particularly because large-scale independent studies haven't verified the data. Naturally, more radical explanations surfaced. A fringe but persistent belief suggests the skulls may not have belonged to Homo sapiens at all, but to a previously unknown hominin species, or perhaps something even less familiar. Could a highly advanced, unidentified population have lived alongside early humans? Skeptics, however, propose a more conservative interpretation. According to some experts, The skulls may reflect generations of intentional cranial binding combined with hereditary traits. If the Paracas had engaged in head shaping for centuries, it's conceivable their genetics adapted, leading to elongated skulls that formed naturally in some individuals. This might explain why a few skulls appear shaped differently than typical cases of skull modification. But this theory doesn't clarify all of the anatomical discrepancies. The enlarged cranial capacity, abnormal bone density, and the missing skull sutures continue to defy straightforward explanations. These mysteries keep the Paracas skulls squarely in the realm of unresolved questions. Adding to the intrigue is the unexplained disappearance of the Paracas culture around 100 BCE. While they were succeeded by the Nazca civilization, famous for creating massive geoglyphs in the desert, the fate of the Paracas people remains uncertain. Some theorists believe that disease, warfare, or environmental collapse wiped them out. Others think they gradually merged with other societies, diluting their unique genetic traits over time. Despite years of investigation, the Paracas skulls remain among the most haunting and enigmatic archaeological findings. Their unusual dimensions and physical anomalies continue to defy consensus, prompting ongoing speculation. Were they shaped purely by human custom? Were they anomalies of biology? Or do they represent a forgotten chapter in the story of our species, one that still lies just outside the margins of known history? Until more comprehensive genetic research brings clarity, we're left with hypotheses and unanswered questions. The Paracas skulls challenge our assumptions about the depth and diversity of ancient humanity. They compel us to ask, who were the Paracas people? Where did they truly originate? And most perplexingly, what ultimately became of them? Is their lineage lost forever, leaving only these eerie relics to speak on their behalf? Or is their legacy still waiting to be uncovered, buried deep within the unseen history of humankind? In the end, the Paracas skulls serve as a poignant symbol, reminding us that ancient cultures often leave behind more questions than answers. Beneath the sands of Peru, their silence endures, beckoning us to keep searching, to keep questioning, and to never assume that all the mysteries of the past have already been solved. In the arid landscapes of southeastern Iran, an ancient civilization once thrived in obscurity, one that remained hidden from the pages of history until its remnants surfaced unexpectedly. This forgotten culture, now identified as the Giraffe civilization, has stunned archaeologists with its sophistication, appearing to rival the grandeur of the Sumerians, Egyptians, and inhabitants of the Indus Valley. Yet, unlike those well-documented societies, Giraffe left behind no written chronicles, no royal names, and no historical accounts, only intricate artifacts and remnants of vast cities pointing to an advanced and structured society. Who were these people? How did their civilization rise? And what led to its mysterious disappearance? The story of Giraffe began to unfold in 2001, when heavy rains caused the Hallow River in Iran to overflow, revealing a wealth of ancient objects buried beneath the soil. Thousands of artifacts surfaced, exquisitely carved stone vessels, ornamental bowls, and statues unlike anything previously seen. Looters rapidly descended upon the site, uncovering and trafficking the relics illegally, prompting professional archaeologists to take swift action. What they discovered beneath the earth was astonishing. Giraffe was far from a modest village. It was a vast, complex society with extensive urban planning, elaborate water management systems, and remarkable artistic skill. Some scholars even argue that Giraffe may predate Mesopotamia, potentially reshaping our understanding of the dawn of civilization. Among the most striking features of Giraffe are its masterful artworks. The artifacts uncovered in the region showcase incredibly detailed carvings depicting animals, divine figures, and abstract geometric forms. Many of these motifs bear similarities to those found in Sumerian and Indus Valley art, suggesting that Giraffe may have served as a major cultural and commercial hub, linking ancient societies across the Middle East and South Asia. But whereas Sumer and the Indus Valley left behind written texts, Giraffe's past remains veiled in silence. No verified writing system has yet been recovered from the site. However, some researchers believe that a form of proto-writing may have existed. Tablets with strange and undeciphered markings have been found, which some experts claim could represent an ancient script, possibly older than Sumerian cuneiform, long considered the earliest known writing system. If this theory holds true, Giraffe might even have been the birthplace of literacy. Still, with so little to go on, this remains speculative. Giraffe's architecture and city planning offer more clues about the society's complexity. Excavations have revealed evidence of monumental citadels, grand palaces, and religious temples, suggesting a sophisticated and centralized administration. Unlike the scattered farming villages typically associated with early humanity, Giraffe appears to have had unified leadership, advanced agriculture, and an intricate trade economy. Some archaeologists even speculate that Giraffe may have been an ancient superpower, influencing the development of other civilizations across the region. One of the most perplexing questions surrounding Giraffe is how such a flourishing society could vanish so completely. Despite its wealth and organization, the civilization seemingly disappeared without a trace. Theories abound regarding its sudden decline. Some suggest that environmental catastrophe may have played a role, perhaps a shift in climate, changes in river patterns, or extended drought rendered the land infertile, prompting its people to abandon their cities. Others argue that the civilization may have been destroyed by war or invasion. Another possibility is cultural assimilation, that Giraffe's people gradually merged with neighboring civilizations, such as those in Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley, taking their skills, traditions, and knowledge with them. If so, traces of their influence may yet be hidden within the histories of other ancient peoples, waiting to be uncovered. Despite its archaeological significance, Giraffe remains largely unknown to the general public. Unlike Egypt and Mesopotamia, which have been studied for generations, Giraffe is a relatively recent discovery. Much of its history has yet to be unraveled. Future excavations could unearth more vital evidence, potentially reshaping everything we thought we knew about the origins of complex societies. But for now, Giraffe lingers as a shadow from the past, a civilization that once thrived, then vanished, leaving behind no written legacy to explain its fate. Was Giraffe truly among the first great civilizations to emerge in human history? Or was it merely one of many advanced cultures whose stories were erased by time? Like so many lost societies, the mystery of Giraffe invites us to challenge our assumptions about early civilization. Its remarkable artifacts speak of a people who were resourceful, highly organized, and deeply connected to the wider world. With its refined artwork, structured urban development, and potential proto-writing system, Giraffe forces us to rethink our understanding of ancient history. Yet without written text, without a clear historical narrative, we are left only with clues, silent echoes of a culture long gone, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. A groundbreaking discovery has challenged long-held beliefs about the origins of writing. Far from the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, deep in Romania, archaeologists uncovered a trio of small, cryptic clay tablets. Their surfaces were engraved with unfamiliar symbols, unlike any other markings from their time. These relics, known as the Tartaria tablets, have ignited passionate debate. Are they the earliest known instance of written expression, predating even ancient cuneiform, or do they represent something entirely different? Could they be ceremonial tools, ornamental etchings, or an early form of symbolic language that never matured into a structured script? These intriguing tablets came to light in 1961, when Romanian archaeologist Nicolae Vlasa excavated a burial site in the village of Tartaria. Alongside the remains of a woman, 3 tablets were found. Their forms were distinct, 2 rectangular and 1 circular, Yet all bore incised symbols laid out in a deliberate sequence, suggesting the possibility of encoded meaning. Even more astonishingly, radiocarbon testing placed them at approximately 5300 BCE, which would make them significantly older than the first verified written text from Sumer. This claim stirred enormous controversy. For decades, scholars had considered Mesopotamia the cradle of writing, with the Sumerians developing cuneiform script around 3100 BCE. If the Tartaria tablets did indeed contain written content, this would suggest that a European society had developed writing more than 2,000 years earlier, a revelation that could dramatically reshape the story of early human civilization. Yet not all experts were persuaded. Many scholars argue that the symbols carved into the tablets do not form a true writing system. Instead, they propose that these marks represent proto-writing, a primitive form of symbolic representation lacking the formal structure and grammatical rules of a complete language. Similar abstract signs have been uncovered at Neolithic archaeological sites across southeastern Europe, particularly among the Vinca culture, which thrived in the Balkans between 6000 and 4000 BCE. The Vinca civilization is recognized for its stylized ceramics and carved artifacts, many of which are etched with enigmatic symbols. These markings may have held meaning, perhaps spiritual or practical, but there is no definitive evidence they represented a full linguistic system. If the Tartaria tablets are linked to this culture, they may not reflect a lost written language, but rather be part of a wider tradition of early symbolic communication. Some scholars suggest the symbols could represent tally systems, ritual inscriptions, or personal emblems, rather than any form of structured linguistic content. Another point of contention is the context of their discovery. The tablets were found within a scorched layer of earth, hinting at destruction by ancient fire. The skeletal remains with which they were buried were severely damaged, leaving many unanswered questions about the individual's identity. Some researchers even question whether the bones and the tablets belong to the same historical period, raising doubts about whether they were originally buried together. The debate intensified as comparisons were drawn between the Tartaria symbols and later scripts. Some scholars noted similarities between the tablet inscriptions and both Sumerian cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphs, prompting speculation about potential contact or cultural exchange between distant ancient civilizations. Others saw resemblances to Linear A, the yet-to-be-deciphered script of the Minoan civilization on Crete. Could these ancient peoples have been influenced by a now-forgotten ancestral writing system? One particularly compelling idea is that the Tartaria tablets were not isolated inventions, but remnants of a broader, prehistoric European writing tradition that has since vanished. If this theory holds, it could mean the emergence of writing was not confined to Mesopotamia, but instead occurred independently in various parts of the ancient world. Adding further intrigue, some academics argue the tablets may have served a spiritual or ritualistic function. Their presence in a burial site suggests they may have been offerings, sacred relics, or symbols tied to ancient beliefs about the afterlife. In this context, the symbols might not be linguistic at all, but rather mystical or religious markings designed to serve spiritual roles beyond simple communication. Despite decades of analysis and speculation, the Tartaria tablets continue to elude definitive interpretation. If they do represent a proto-writing system, they could significantly alter our understanding of the birth of civilization, revealing that Europe played a more foundational role in human cultural development than traditionally thought. But if they are not examples of writing, what purpose did they fulfill? Were they tools of early storytelling, ceremonial items, or part of a symbolic language yet to be fully understood? Just as the undeciphered glyphs of the Giraffe civilization may hold the untold history of a lost people, the Tartaria tablets remain a powerful reminder of the vast unknowns that still lie within our past. These small, enigmatic objects challenge our historical timelines and compel us to reassess what we think we know. Whether etched in stone, interred in ancient graves, or displayed in plain sight. Such artifacts offer tantalizing clues, fragments of forgotten worlds. Until new discoveries bring clarity, the Tartaria tablets will continue to symbolize the hidden complexity of humanity's early past, proof that history reveals itself not in grand declarations, but in quiet, puzzling pieces. And many more of those mysteries still lie buried, waiting to be brought to light. Among the most confounding archaeological finds are objects that seem wholly out of alignment with their historical setting, artifacts that raise questions simply by existing. In the ancient landscapes of Iraq, within the remnants of one of humanity's earliest recorded societies, archaeologists discovered a peculiar set of statues. These small, eerie figures, which don't resemble anything else in Mesopotamian antiquity, are today known as the Al-Ubaid statues. Dating back more than 7,000 years, these figurines portray humanoid beings bearing long skulls, angled eyes, and unmistakably reptile-like attributes. They are associated with the Ubaid culture, a civilization that thrived in Mesopotamia from approximately 6,500 to 3,800 BCE. This early society remains one of the least comprehended chapters in human history. The Ubaid people predated the renowned Sumerians, long credited as the first major civilization, and laid essential groundwork for the complex societies that emerged after them. They established early communities, pioneered irrigation, and domesticated animals, cornerstones of structured human life. Yet despite their substantial legacy, they left minimal traces, no extensive writings, and only limited material remnants of their daily existence. Among the rare artifacts recovered from this enigmatic society, the Al-Ubaid figurines stand out as particularly perplexing. Discovered in the early 1900s at excavation sites like Tel Al-Ubaid, Eridu, and other Mesopotamian ruins, these clay and stone statuettes show figures in various stances, some upright, others seated, many gripping objects or what appear to be weapons. But what sets them apart is their facial structure. Rather than human visages, they possess lizard-like traits, stretched craniums, exaggerated almond-shaped eyes, and scale textures. Some are adorned with what appear to be helmets or ritualistic garments, hinting at their possibly elevated status within society. What unsettles scholars further is that several of these reptilian figures seem to portray women, particularly maternal figures holding babies. This implies these beings weren't purely symbolic. They may have occupied central roles in Ubaid religious beliefs, folklore, or social hierarchy. The central question remains unresolved. Who or what did these reptilian beings represent? A common hypothesis is that they were stylized renderings of divine entities or spiritual forces. Many ancient cultures fashioned anthropomorphic icons symbolizing fertility, protection, or celestial power. Perhaps the Ubaid statues were ritual items, charms, or idols representing deities or mythical beings tied to their cosmology. Yet, their reptilian appearance has inspired more controversial theories. Some scholars have linked them to widespread serpent reverence, a tradition observed in civilizations around the world, from the feathered serpent gods of Mesoamerica to the Norse of Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Serpent-like entities often symbolize knowledge, creation, or divine lineage. Could these Ubaid figurines be among the earliest depictions of such serpent deities, part of a spiritual tradition that predates Sumerian mythology? An even more speculative theory posits that these statues might represent a long-lost race or elite class, remembered as reptilian due to distinctive physical traits. Some researchers entertain the idea that the figures may symbolize a now extinct hominin lineage, beings that once coexisted with early humans but left behind no bones, only legends. Though lacking any direct biological proof, this theory persists due to the statues' anomalous features. The most contentious idea of all is that the statues are representations of extraterrestrials. Ancient alien proponents argue that the Ubaid civilization may have recorded their encounters with beings not of this earth, entities so physically different from humans that the statues became the record. These theorists cite the consistently reptilian traits and the absence of similar images in later Mesopotamian art as possible evidence of extraordinary encounters that were never repeated. Skeptics maintain that these are simply imaginative creations from early artists, no stranger than other abstract or stylized figures seen in prehistoric art around the globe. Amid the lofty terrains of Bolivia, a peculiar object surfaced, an ancient artifact so unusual and contextually baffling that it challenges accepted ideas about the scope of early human contact across civilizations. Referred to as the Fuente Magna vessel, this mysterious relic has been at the center of intense controversy, scholarly debate, and unending speculation for many years. Etched with markings that bear a resemblance to ancient Sumerian cuneiform, the bowl was unearthed far from the historic heartlands of Mesopotamian civilization. Its existence poses a provocative question. Could the early inhabitants of South America have had interaction with distant civilizations across the globe thousands of years ago? Reportedly discovered near the expansive Lake Titicaca, a high-altitude body of water that spans the boundary between Bolivia and Peru, the Fuente Magna is a substantial stone container. Its shape is reminiscent of ceremonial basins or ritual offering vessels. At first glance, it resembles many regional finds. However, one critical feature sets it apart. Its surface bears inscriptions that seem strikingly similar to Sumerian script. The artifact came to light in the 1960s when a local farmer stumbled upon it near the town of Chua. However, the true significance of the find only became apparent once researchers analyzed the strange carvings etched across the vessel. Unlike the geometric and pictorial symbols typically found in pre-Columbian South American artifacts, the Fuente Magna features a form of writing eerily akin to Proto-Sumerian or archaic cuneiform, scripts dating back over 5 millennia to ancient Mesopotamia. If these markings are indeed of Sumerian origin, it would imply that a Middle Eastern civilization had somehow made contact with Andean societies long before any known historical record suggests such interactions ever occurred. This would mark a seismic shift in our understanding of ancient migration, trade, and intercultural communication. Yet this claim faces a major hurdle. No established historical documentation supports any exchange between Mesopotamian and Andean peoples. The Sumerians, who flourished between approximately 3,100 and 2000 BC in the Fertile Crescent, were known for their advanced cities, written language, and maritime commerce. However, there is no mainstream archaeological evidence that they ventured beyond the Middle East, let alone cross the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. Thus, the Fuente Magna has become a subject of competing theories. Some scholars argue that the bowl is an authentic relic that demonstrates a long-forgotten transoceanic interaction. Others contend that the bowl is either a misinterpreted artifact, a modern forgery, or a creation shaped by cultural convergence rather than direct contact. Proponents of the bowl's authenticity highlight that Lake Titicaca was once home to the Tiwanaku civilization, an ancient Andean culture that predates the Inca by millennia. The Tiwanaku are known for their advanced architectural achievements, including the precision-cut stones of Pumapunku, a site famous for its finely carved andesite blocks that some believe required sophisticated tools. This raises the question, could the Tiwanaku have had external influence from an ancient seafaring society, possibly even one from the Old World? Some theorists suggest that early civilizations like the Sumerians might have possessed shipbuilding skills advanced enough for transoceanic voyages. Though this idea remains highly contentious, its supporters argue that ancient cultures may have been far more mobile and interconnected than traditional narratives allow. A more speculative version of this theory even suggests that Lake Titicaca might once have had a link to the sea, enabling early maritime contact with foreign civilizations. While highly theoretical, this notion adds another layer of intrigue to the story. Critics, however, are not without strong counterpoints. Detractors argue that the inscriptions could have been etched onto the vessel much later, possibly by a modern individual trying to mimic Sumerian script. Alternatively, they suggest that a South American group could have developed a writing system coincidentally resembling that of ancient Mesopotamia. Furthermore, there is a complete lack of additional evidence to suggest Mesopotamian influence in the Andes, no Sumerian-style architecture, no Middle Eastern artifacts, and no linguistic traces linking the two cultures. Another challenge lies in the bowl's discovery context. Unlike major archaeological finds, which are usually recovered in controlled excavation environments, the Fuente Magna was reportedly found by accident, and little information exists about its exact original location or the conditions under which it was unearthed. This absence of precise documentation makes it extremely difficult to verify the object's authenticity. Still, the enigma endures. If the Fuente Magna vessel is a legitimate piece from an ancient transoceanic encounter, it would suggest that early civilizations were far more globally connected than we currently believe. Such a revelation would call into question the established timelines of cultural development, idea exchange, and technological spread across continents. Even if the bowl does not represent a genuine link to Sumerian civilization, it remains an anomaly that demands further study. If it was crafted by the Tiwanaku or another ancient Andean people, then why does its script so closely mirror Mesopotamian writing? Could there have been an intermediary civilization, now lost to time, that bridged the cultural gap between these distant regions? Or perhaps it's simply a striking coincidence, a case of different human societies developing similar symbolic systems despite their vast geographical separation. Until more conclusive evidence emerges, the Fuente Magna remains an unresolved puzzle, a curious object that defies explanation. Whether it is proof of forgotten global interactions or just an eccentric outlier, its presence alone invites us to rethink the rigidity of our historical understanding. If civilizations we once believed to be completely isolated were actually interacting across oceans, then how much of humanity's past lies buried and unrecognized? Some mysteries come in the form of small, perplexing relics. Others span across continents, challenging everything we think we know. Across vast open plains, where ancient humans once gathered, remnants of their presence have surfaced in the form of structures that challenge our expectations. Amid the dry, wind-swept expanses of northern Kenya lies an ancient burial complex that ranks among the most baffling finds in African archaeology. Known as the Lothagam North Pillar Site, this monumental location is not only the oldest recorded cemetery in eastern Africa, but also one of the earliest monumental constructions in human history. It was created by a community whose exact identity still remains largely a mystery. Situated near Lake Turkana, the Lothagam North Pillar Site dates back roughly 5,000 years, positioning it among the first large-scale communal burial places ever built. The site features a vast central platform encircled by stone columns that rise like ancient guards watching over the stark landscape. Beneath this edifice, archaeologists uncovered a shared burial chamber containing the remains of no fewer than 580 people, men, women, and children, interred together across many generations. In contrast to the grand tombs of subsequent civilizations, which often belonged only to rulers or the elite, Lothagam North seems to represent a non-hierarchical necropolis, an uncommon phenomenon in early human cultures. The deceased appear to have been buried without any distinction of rank or wealth, their bodies laid side by side with ornamental beads, intricately carved jewelry, and other decorative items. This implies a society where everyone, regardless of status or privilege, was afforded equal reverence in death. This finding is especially noteworthy because during this era, many human groups were still transitioning from small nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers to more permanent agricultural communities. Constructing such a large communal burial site, which would have required significant planning and collective labor, indicates that the people of Lothagam North possessed a strong social cohesion, far surpassing previous assumptions about early groups in this region. But what motivated the construction of this site, and why choose this isolated, harsh environment? One prevalent hypothesis is that the site was established by pastoralist societies, early herding communities that roamed the area in pursuit of water and grazing lands for their animals. At the time this burial complex was built, Lake Turkana was undergoing significant environmental changes, gradually shifting from a fertile, lush region to the arid desert landscape familiar to us today. These changes likely put tremendous pressure on the inhabitants, compelling them to adapt, relocate, or develop new means to sustain their community. Some scholars propose that the Lothagam North Pillar site served as a spiritual or cultural focal point during this turbulent period, a gathering place for dispersed groups to bury their dead and reaffirm their collective identity amid uncertainty. If this interpretation holds true, then the site is not merely a cemetery, but also a monument symbolizing endurance and survival in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments. The towering stone pillars, which lend the site its name, add yet another layer of enigma. Unlike the orderly layout of the megaliths at Stonehenge or the carefully aligned rows of Karnak, the Lothagam pillars are irregularly scattered, standing like weather-beaten markers of a forgotten epoch. Their purpose remains elusive. Some archaeologists suggest these stones may have held ceremonial importance, potentially aligned with celestial phenomena or seasonal changes, while others think they simply denoted sacred territory. Another possibility is that the site played a role in ancestral veneration. In many early societies, burial grounds were more than resting places. They were spiritual hubs where the living connected with the spirits of their forebears, seeking protection or wisdom. Given the meticulous care in which the bodies were laid to rest at Lothagam North, it's plausible the site served a similar ritualistic function, acting as a conduit for memory, identity, and tradition passed through generations. Adding to the mystery, the site appears to have been used over many centuries before being abandoned. The builders seem to have eventually moved away, leaving behind their stone pillars as silent relics of their existence. Why they departed is unknown. Did the climate become too harsh? Did conflict force migration? Or did their culture evolve to the point where the site was no longer needed? The significance of Lothagam North is amplified by its antiquity. While many world-famous monuments, such as Egypt's pyramids, Mesopotamia's ziggurats, or the grand cities of the Indus Valley, were created by highly organized states with centralized governance and advanced building knowledge, Lothagam North predates these by centuries. It was constructed by a people still largely nomadic, suggesting that the human impulse to create enduring monuments transcending daily life is much older than previously assumed. This challenges the belief that monumental architecture necessitated kings, cities, or formal states. Instead, it demonstrates that even small, mobile pastoral groups could collaborate to erect lasting structures. Despite its importance, Lothagam North remains one of the most obscure ancient sites globally. Unlike the Great Pyramids or Stonehenge, it has not captured widespread public attention, partly due to its remote location in Kenya's semi-arid deserts, far from popular tourist routes. But more profoundly, it reveals how much of Africa's deep history remains insufficiently explored and appreciated. More than a mere burial site, the Lothagam North Pillar site stands as a testament to human endurance, adaptability, and the intrinsic need to forge lasting bonds with the past. It indicates that early African societies were far more sophisticated than once believed, capable of cooperation, engineering, and rich spiritual traditions long before the emergence of what we usually label as civilization. Ultimately, the Lothagam North Pillar site serves as a quiet memorial to a vanished people and a reminder that monumental construction predates the rise of great civilizations. Whether it functioned as a graveyard, a ritual center, or something even more profound, Its very presence contests our assumptions about the complexity of prehistoric communities. While some enigmas like Lothagam are deeply rooted in the cultural customs of their creators, others appear entirely misplaced, objects and sites that defy conventional timelines and challenge established historical understanding.